Welcome to day 3 of our training. We are so happy to have Dr. Elvin Adams with us today. He has his power back on and sitting in the comfort of AC in his home. Praise the Lord. So we're going to have a short prayer and then we're going to turn it over to Dr. Adams. Kind Father in heaven, thank you so much for this day and your blessings. Thank you for your assistance in the preparation for this program. Father, I ask that you please help us and give us all the direction and be with Dr. Adam as he presents. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you again today. I'm sorry about yesterday, but we had no power due to the hurricane that came through. Today we actually have 3 rather exciting lectures that I'm glad to give you. And on the first one, we want to talk about supplements. And as soon as this comes up on screen, we'll begin. I believe you can see correctly now. This is from chapter 20 in our textbook, The Principles and Practice of Health Evangelism. And we're up to page 223 to 229. And my computer is not advancing. And you'll have to figure that out. There we go. So supplements include, there are a variety of dietary supplements, and they include vitamins and minerals and herbs and nutraceuticals, and they're in the news all the time. And I wonder if you could mute your side, because I'm getting some feedback. What is a dietary supplement? Well, it is a tablet, a capsule, a powder, a gel, or a liquid product that contains one or more of the following. It may contain a vitamin, a mineral, an herb or botanical that comes from plants, amino acids from proteins that are broken down, and they can be from plant or animal, or they might be enzymes, which are proteins from plants or animals. And many supplements actually contain organ tissue from various animals. Or it could be a concentrate, a metabolite, a constituent, or an extract of any of the above. Now, there are laws that control dietary supplements, and it's called the Dietary Supplements Health and Education Act, DSHEA. And it was passed long ago in 1994. And the unfortunate thing is that dietary supplements are not regulated by anybody. There is no testing required. No proof of efficacy is required. You do not have to prove that a supplement actually works or does anything. And you do not have to prove that the supplement is safe. There are no dosage guidelines. Do you take 1, 2, 6, or 8? There's no guidelines, and there are no purity standards. You can have dirt or sand mixed with it, and you do not have to publish the results of any of the studies that have been done. And most of the time, these products are advertised by celebrities, and they are sold without FDA supervision unless there are some deaths that occur. And here is a quote from Stephen Novella from the Skeptical Inquirer, and he very accurately states the deal that DSHEA made with, these are the nutraceutical companies, with the public is this: let the supplement industry have free rein to market untested products with unsupported claims, and then we will find reliable studies to arm the public with scientific information so they can make good decisions for themselves. This experiment, which is really just a gift to the supplement industry, has been a dismal failure. The result has been an explosion of the supplement industry flooding the marketplace with useless products and false claims. And I'm going to give you some examples. One of the most popular one of these supplements sold today and advertised widely on television is Prevagen. And you can see what it says on the package. It improves memory, supports brain function, gives you a sharper mind and clearer thinking. And I would just submit to you that none of those three claims have ever been defined. Nobody has ever defined what a sharper mind is. Nobody has ever defined what healthy brain function is. And nobody has defined exactly what clearer thinking is. And they're now telling you that this was originally discovered in jellyfish, and it's now made in a controlled scientific process now with vitamin D. But notice the huge disclaimer. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, to treat, to cure, or prevent any disease. So right there, they're telling you this is just all wishful thinking. Here's another example. I see this advertised here in North Carolina a lot. Lipozene, and it gives you 4 times the weight loss, which is just amazing. And it contains the Amorphophallus konjac plant. And notice that it helps reduce weight, helps reduce body fat, and helps, it is safe and effective. But notice that there's a little cross there. And if you turn to the back and look at the little cross in the box statement in the lower right-hand side, it says these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, to treat, to cure, or prevent any disease. So it's not really intended to reduce body weight. It's not really intended to reduce body fat. And it's not really been tested to see if it's safe, and it hasn't been tested to see if it's effective. And so you can see their disclaimer undoes everything on the front of the label. Here's another one, a very popular coenzyme Q10, ubiquinone, and this company makes it for anybody that wants to sell it. And they're suggesting that you take it 1 capsule twice a day for best results 10 to 30 minutes before a meal with an 8-ounce glass of water. Don't recommend the exceeded recommended dose. And then they have this statement. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And so the truth is, this is an untested cure. And the FDA does not tell you that it works or doesn't work. The FDA has not required them to find out whether it's safe or what the accurate dose should be. Now here is a very popular one, Centrum Silver. It's for men over 50, and you can see that it's a vitamin and mineral supplement. And then let's read what it says. This Centrum Silver helps support your body head to toe with Centrum, the #1 doctor and pharmacist recommended brand, and it's non-GMO, which is good. #2, it affects your heart. The B vitamins help promote heart health, but it's not a replacement for cholesterol-lowering drugs. It helps your brain because zinc and B vitamins help support normal brain function. It helps your eyes because it has vitamin A, C, and E, and lutein that helps support healthy eyes. But this product is not intended to provide daily intake of lutein. Take with a diet rich in fruits and vegetables. So this Centrum is going to really help you if you eat a lot of fruit and vegetables. What they're really saying is that if you eat your fruit and vegetables, you don't need Centrum Silver at all. And then #3, it has magnesium, vitamin D, and B6 to help support muscle function. And you notice that there's a little asterisk after every one of these, and the asterisk ties into this statement. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Why would you want to take something that will not treat, cure, or prevent any disease? We're in the business of helping people live longer and to live healthier, and none of these products have any established validity in that regard. And here's another statement by Stephen Barrett. And here he says how the Diet, Supplement, Health, and Education Act of 1994 weakened the FDA. And he says this act does not require that dietary supplements be shown to be safe or effective before they're marketed. The FDA does not scrutinize a dietary supplement before it enters the marketplace. The agency is permitted to restrict a substance if it poses a significant and unreasonable risk under the conditions of use on the label or as is commonly consumed. And as a result, once a lot of people get sick or once a lot of people die, then the FDA can step in and say, you've got to take that off the market. But until that happens, this is considered a food. And the reason they use the word dietary in there is that you do not have any warning labels on carrots or potatoes or apples. Food looks like food, tastes like food, acts like food, gives you good nutrition like food, and it does not require labeling. And so all of these supplements, as far as the FDA is concerned, are considered foods. They are dietary supplements, and for that reason, you don't have to prove that potatoes are safe, you don't have to prove that carrots are safe, and in the same way, you don't have to prove that any supplements are safe. You don't have to prove that potatoes help you. You don't have to prove that Centrum Silver helps you, because these are dietary supplements. And so you can see there's a huge loophole through which the supplement industry has jumped. Now, they cannot make any claim that it can treat, cure, or mitigate a disease. However, they can make claims that it affects or maintains the structure of body function. And so they can make very vague statements like it helps mood disorders, helps rejuvenate, repair cartilage, improves memory and concentration. It's immune enhancer. That one really amuses me. An immune enhancer. That means it challenges your immune system to get stronger. Well, you can do that by eating dirt. You know, if you take in a foreign substance, your immune system is going to be stimulated to try to fight it. They say it improves digestion. In what way? Relieves symptoms of menopause. What symptoms? Now, there are certain claims that are permitted by the FDA. They can claim that calcium prevents osteoporosis, although careful studies have shown that calcium does not prevent osteoporosis. Good fats reduce the risk of some cancers, that is true. Sodium contributes to high blood pressure, we know that. Dietary fiber reduces the risk of heart disease, that's true. That's why they can put the little heart symbol on rolled oats and other high fiber products. They can say that cholesterol contributes to coronary heart disease. They can say that fruits and vegetables, as fruits and vegetables, lower cancer risk. And they can say that folate in prenatal vitamins prevents neural tube defects in babies. And they can also say that sugar causes tooth decay. And so the pros and cons. Scientific drugs on the left-hand side are medications. On the right-hand side, they're a food supplement made by the dietary industry. Both can be natural and synthetic. The FDA controls licensed medications, whereas on the other side, there's no regulation at all. A licensed drug today takes years to get to the market and will cost a company over $1 billion in order to prove that A, it really does work, what it really does, what the side effects are, and if it's safe and what the right dose should be. And so there is safety testing of drugs, but none for food supplements. efficacy testing for drugs, but none for food supplements. And all drugs licensed by the FDA have extremely narrow indications. You can use them for this and this only because it only helps this. Whereas the food supplements, they can say, it'll make hair grow, it'll take care of it'll cure bunions, and very often food supplements are complex mixtures, whereas the Food and Drug Administration drugs are now simple remedies, single items. And so do you need dietary supplements? We're going to look at several studies in the first hour today. And the first is a very important study, and this was funded by the U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and it is a study of vitamin, mineral, and multivitamin supplements, and they were looking to see if this would prevent heart disease or cancer or death. And this was done by the Preventive Services Task Force, and this was their recommendation after studying everything for a period of several years. So this is a national organization, U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, and they are funded by the U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. And after studying all of the vitamins and all of the supplements and all of the literature that's there, this is their conclusion, or this was their primary goal, and I'm quoting directly from the study: to systematically review evidence for the benefit and harms for vitamin and mineral supplements in community-dwelling, nutrient-sufficient adults for the primary prevention of cardiovascular disease and cancer. And of course, you want to study this in nutrient-sufficient, not starving, and you want to study it on people in the community who are healthy to begin with, because these are the people that get heart attacks, these are the people that get cancer, and these are the people that die. And cancer and heart disease are the number one and number two causes of death. And they did this because half of the U.S. population takes dietary supplements, and a multivitamin is the most common supplement, and they are taken to promote health and prevent chronic disease, and heart disease and cancer are the most common. The public in 2020 will spend $35 billion on healthcare supplements. And so what this task force did was scour the world's published medical literature. They reviewed 12,766 abstracts, 277 full-text articles, and 26 big studies. And the study design went from a small one, as small as a study of just 128 people, all the way up to larger studies containing 72,377 people. And they studied, study populations varied from 22 to 77. And usually when you do studies, you like to study older people because they get sick faster and they die faster. And you can tell whether or not your drug was any good. And the follow-up of these studies varied from 6 months to 16 years. Frankly, in 6 months of taking a vitamin, you're not going to be able to tell much of anything. It would take a long study to see if a supplement did you any good. So this is their results. Multivitamins, the studies they looked at contained 27,000 people, and there was a slight protection against cancer for men only in just one study, but there was no effect on heart disease for men or women. Beta-carotene studies, 112,000 people, no effect on mortality, no effect on heart disease or cancer, but there was an increased risk of lung cancer in smokers and asbestos workers who took beta-carotene. Vitamin E, 120,000 people, no effect on mortality, heart disease, or cancer. The mineral selenium, in the studies of 36,000 people, no effect on mortality or heart disease or cancer, but an increased risk of lung cancer in smokers. Studies of vitamin A, 20,000 people, no effect on mortality, heart disease, or cancer, but an increased risk of lung cancer in smokers who take vitamin E. Vitamin C, 15,000 people, no effect on mortality, heart disease, or cancer. Folic acid, 1,000 people, no effect on mortality or heart disease, but an increased risk of prostate cancer in men who take folic acid. Vitamin D, 7,978, no effect on mortality, heart disease, or cancer. Calcium, 8,000, no effect on mortality, heart disease, or cancer. Vitamin D and calcium together, 12,000 subjects, no effect on mortality, heart disease, and mixed results on cancer. It made cancer worse. So in conclusion, this body of people who had no predisposed prejudices made this conclusion. We found no evidence of an effect of nutritional doses of supplements on cardiovascular disease, cancer, or mortality in healthy individuals without known nutritional deficiencies for most supplements we examined. Lack of any effect on cardiovascular diseases makes it difficult to conclude that multivitamin supplementation is beneficial. So, Government Preventive Task Force says vitamins and minerals don't work. Now, we're going to take a look at some very specific studies. I really like this because green tea is really recommended highly, and one of the benefits is supposed to be to prevent breast cancer in women. And this came out of the National Cancer Institute in Tokyo, Japan. It contained 54,000 Japanese women followed for 14 years, and 12% drank less than a cup a day, 27% drank 5 or more cups a day. So you've got a spectrum. 12% of the women didn't drink green tea at all, 27% drank 5 or more cups. And hundreds of breast cancers developed in this population, and breast cancer rates were exactly the same in all tea drinking groups. So green tea drinking does not prevent breast cancer. Now we're going to take a look at long-term vitamin E supplementation on cardiovascular events and cancer. And this is a randomized controlled trial, which I like. And this was not a huge study, but contained almost 10,000 people. And in 267 study centers, they were followed for 4.5 years. And this is the number of people in each group. They had 4,761 in the vitamin E group, 4,780 in the placebo group. And over the period of 4.5 years, how many deaths occurred in each group? 467 in the vitamin E group, and 567 in the vitamin E group, and 568 in the placebo group. So right there, what does that tell you? Vitamin E, taken for 5 years, doesn't change the death rate at all. And you can see the rest of it. Heart disease down there, 1,263 developed heart disease, 1,282 in the placebo group. There you see. Strokes, vitamin E had more strokes, placebo was better. High blood pressure was essentially the same in both. High cholesterol was about the same in both, and diabetes was close to being the same in both. And so, if we were to look at heart attacks that occurred, you can see that if you take vitamin E, the risk is slightly increased. If you have a stroke, they were slightly increased. Death from cardiovascular, slightly increased. And you can look on through there. The worst numbers were for all heart failure, whereas the vitamin E had 519 and the placebo 443. Hospitalization for heart failure, 203 versus 146. And those were actually the only two numbers that achieved statistical significance. And so they said, in the HOPE and HOPE 2 trials, the daily administration of 400 units of natural source vitamin E for a median of 7 years had no clear impact on fatal and non-fatal cancers, major cardiovascular events, or deaths, but there was an increase in the risk of heart failure. And so you take vitamin E, you're more likely to have heart failure. So let's look at another study. And I'm putting these in so you can just see how these studies are conducted. And in this one, this was the vitamin C, E, and beta-carotene supplementation and cancer risk, a randomized controlled trial. And this came out of the Women's Antioxidant Cardiovascular Study. And there were 8,171 women enrolled. And this was a 2x2x2 factorial trial, which I'll explain. It was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial. And these are very important. What this really means, double-blind means that the patient wasn't sure whether they were taking a placebo or vitamin C, and the person administering the medication wasn't sure, so the doctor wasn't sure whether this was vitamin C or placebo. And it's important that the doctor or the nurse administering doesn't favorably or unfavorably influence the patient. The vitamin C that they were giving was 500 milligrams. Vitamin E was 600 international units every other day, and beta-carotene was 50 milligrams every other day. And of these 8,000 women, 7,627 were free of cancer, and they were randomly assigned to groups. So randomization is important. You want to not be biased. You don't want to send sick people to the trial drug or to the placebo and healthy people either way. So it's important to randomize these people. This was a good study because these people were followed for 9.4 years. And so here's the 2x2x2 study. You can see that they had active vitamin C and vitamin C placebo, active vitamin E and vitamin E placebo, beta-carotene supplement and beta-carotene placebo, and there were about 3,800 in each group. And the age was the same, and these were very much the same. So let's look at the vitamin C group, and let's take a look at all cancers that develop. In those taking vitamin C, there were 329 cancers, and in the placebo, there were 295. So there was an 11% increase in the risk if you took vitamin C. And breast cancer, there was an increase in risk. Lung cancer, the risk almost doubled. Cancer of the pancreas was increased. All cancer deaths at the very bottom, there were 99 there in the vitamin C and 77 in the placebo group. So in these women, there was a 28% increase in the risk of cancer if you took vitamin C. So in vitamin E, all cancers were 300 versus 324. So it looks like vitamin E might have been helpful. But if you look at breast cancer, it's 127 versus 130. Lung cancer, 41 versus 33. Pancreas, 10 versus 10. Uterus, there was less. Lymphoma, there was a little bit less. But other cancers was a wash. And so vitamin E really does not protect you from cancer. Let's look at beta-carotene. And if we look at all cancers in the beta-carotene group, 311 in the placebo, 313, it's just basically a wash. And then they had various combinations. Vitamin C, near the bottom you have vitamin C plus vitamin E, vitamin C and beta-carotene, vitamin E and beta-carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E, and beta-carotene. And any of the bars to the right side favors the placebo. Any of the things to the left side favors the vitamin. And you can see that there's no advantage in taking any of these vitamins in any existing combination. Their conclusion was supplementation with vitamin C, vitamin E, or beta-carotene offers no overall benefits in the primary prevention of total cancer incidence or cancer mortality. Here's a very interesting study, and one of my favorites. This was a study done in Japan by Takashi Hirayama, who was the head of their National Cancer Institute. And this was not a study of medicine, but a study of diet. And they looked at lung cancer, and if we make the rate of lung cancer 1 for those that smoke, drank alcohol, and ate meat every day, and did not eat green and yellow vegetables, we'll make that 1. But look at the yellow group. The yellow group smoked, They drank alcohol, they ate meat every day, but they ate green and yellow vegetables, and their risk of lung cancer dropped by 30%. Of course, the people with the greatest benefit were those that did not smoke, did not drink, did not eat meat, but ate green and yellow vegetables. So all of the Seventh-day Adventists in this study ended up being down in the green bar. But what interested scientists was the fact that you could cut back on the risk of lung cancer by 30% by eating green and yellow vegetables. They said, great, let's put that in a pill. What's the major benefit of green and yellow vegetables? It is antioxidants. So let's take antioxidant. The best one we can find is beta-carotene. Let's give beta-carotene to smokers, and if we can reduce the risk of lung cancer by 30%, we'll be ahead of the game, and we can really sell this to smokers. So they started a big study, and here's what happened. This had 18,000 men and women in it. It was called the Carrot Study. And the ones that took, smokers that took no beta-carotene, were going to make their risk of lung cancer 1. And you can see that after 21 months, there was a 30% increase in the risk of lung cancer if you took beta-carotene. So they stopped it and said, no, it's not going to work. You've got to stick with the vegetables because there's not a pill we can give you that'll prevent lung cancer. And here is this. The reason I put this one is this was a big study, and it had men, almost 300,000 men, and they were followed for 5 years, and 10,000 cases of prostate cancer developed. Some took vitamin E in various amounts, and all ate foods that had vitamin E in various amounts. And alpha tocopherol is the vitamin E that is the most bioactive. It's preferentially retained in the blood, and it's the one that's sold in supplements. Nobody pays any attention to beta tocopherol. Gamma tocopherol is the most commonly consumed form of vitamin E in food. And so that's where we actually get most of ours, gamma tocopherol, and it's not considered to be particularly bioactive. And so what did they find out? They had those that took no vitamin E, those that took 0 to 399, those that took 400 to 799, and those that took a lot. And you can see they had a lot of people in each one of those groups. And some took vitamin C, beta-carotene, and selenium as well as vitamin E. And here's how vitamin E helped these people. And you can see that no matter what the dose of vitamin E was, there's absolutely no benefit in terms of reducing your risk of prostate cancer. But they found out that the gamma tocopherol that there is in food does reduce the risk of prostate cancer. It reduced it by more than 15%. And so if you eat the right food that has the right vitamin E in it, it'll reduce your risk. But taking the pill, vitamin E, does absolutely nothing for you. So in this huge study, the conclusion was these results suggest that supplemental vitamin E does not protect against prostate cancer, but that increased consumption of gamma tocopherol from foods is associated with reduced risk of clinically relevant disease. So you should get your vitamin E from food. You should get all of your vitamins from food. You never need to have a supplement. And here is another study. And I don't know if I really want to go through this one here. This is a huge study of all of the vitamin studies that could be done. 68 trials, 200,000 participants. The vitamins were beta-carotene, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium. And there were, look at all of the studies. Vitamin E, 55 different studies. Vitamin C, 34 trials. And so this is a study of studies. And these were the combinations that were used. And what did they find? And the solid black square is the result, the primary result of the study, and the line is the range through which truth might really lie. So a square box with a long line is actually a poor study. A square box with a teeny tiny line on each side is a valid study. So any square boxes on the right favors the placebo. Any square boxes on the left with a short line favors the antioxidants. And these were from the first 15 studies that were well designed. This is from the next 15 studies that had low bias and were well designed. I think you can see that the square boxes are almost all on the right. And here is the next 15 studies, and you can see most of the square boxes are to the right. And so this is the sum of 47 scientific studies looking at whether or not vitamins and minerals prevent disease. And this diamond-shaped thing just to the right of the line shows that overall, placebos win out over vitamin supplements. Very plain and simple. You add it all up, vitamins aren't worth the money you spend for them. Now, they did find some trials that they included that were not well designed. They were not double-blind, they weren't randomized, they weren't crossover, and most of these had very few people in them, thus the very long lines, but they added them all up. And if you look at the high bias trials, it ends up just being slightly in favor of supplements, but not enough to be statistically significant. So their conclusion was, our systematic review contains a number of findings. Beta-carotene, vitamin A, vitamin E, given singly or combined with other antioxidant supplements, significantly increase mortality, and there is no evidence that vitamin C may increase longevity. Then, I put in this trial just today because it's a later trial. This was published in November of last year, and I, generally speaking, like to have studies in humans, but this is a study that looks at two vitamins, vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acid, because these are anti-inflammatory. And they're looking at biomarkers of systemic inflammation in U.S. older adults. I'm going to explain this more. So this is a good study because it's randomized. They didn't care who went in which group. It was double-blind, so the patients didn't know what they were getting and the doctor didn't know what they were getting. And it was a placebo-controlled trial, 2x2 factorial design, 1,561 men, and that were under 50 years old, and there were women in there, and they were greater than 55. They gave supplementation for 1 year only, and this is okay because they're not looking at disease and death. They're looking at biomarkers that result over a long time in disease and death, and they were measuring markers of inflammation. So the supplements that they used were vitamin D, 2,000 units every day, and omega-3 fatty acids, 1 gram every day, and some had both, and a placebo. And we know from surveys of people that are sick that if you have inflammation, your interleukin-6, IL-6, is elevated, your tissue necrosis factor 2, TNFR2, is elevated, and your C-reactive protein, high-sensitive C-reactive protein, is elevated. So these are all well-established markers of inflammation. So if you go to the emergency room today with an inflammatory condition, they will very often study these biomarkers. And if you are taking an anti-inflammatory drug, it should reduce these. And it should reduce it within a few days or a few weeks. And if you took the supplementation for a whole year, you should certainly see a difference in these biomarkers. Well, let's take a look. This is the vitamin D, and we have the vitamin D group in the middle and the placebo to the right, and the baseline interleukin was 1.71 in the vitamin D and 1.68 in the placebo. So they're about the same. At the end of the year, the interleukin-6 went up in the vitamin D group from 1.7 to 1.8, and in the placebo group, the interleukin-6 went down to 1.63. And so the vitamin D made you 5 worse, placebo made you almost 3% better. If we look at tissue necrosis factor 2 at baseline, you can see that the vitamin D and the placebo group were about the same. And at the end of the year, the vitamin D group was 2.3% worse, and the placebo group was worse as well, although not as much, 1.68. If you look at the high-sensitive C-reactive protein, the vitamin D and placebo group started out about the same, but at the end of the year, vitamin D group was 9.46 worse, and the placebo group was only 2.18% worse. And so clearly, vitamin D increases your markers of inflammation, does not reduce them. Vitamin D is not an anti-inflammatory drug. If we look at omega-3 fatty acids, you can see that the baseline interleukin-6 was about the same in the omega-3. At the end of the year, both were worse, the placebo slightly worse. If you look at tissue necrosis factor 2, they were about the same to begin with. And at the end of the year, they were both worse, but the placebo was a little more worse. And if you look at C-reactive protein, the placebo was a little worse than the omega-3 fatty acids, which were only 3% worse. So, here it looks like the omega-3 fatty acids, you'll get worse a little slower than if you took a placebo. But it would have been nice if they'd have compared that with eating fruits and vegetables, in which case it might have gotten better. But the conclusion clearly is that these anti-inflammatory vitamins do not actually reduce inflammation. So their conclusion was, in this study of participants in the VITAL trial, neither vitamin D nor omega-3 fatty acid supplements reduce systemic inflammation biomarkers over 1 year. Thus, it is unlikely that these supplements, taken widely in the general population, have major anti-inflammatory effects. They're saying they're not anti-inflammatory. They do not work. So, this was a thoughtful study published some time ago, look at that. We are over time already. Of course, we started just a little late, but the next lecture will actually go fairly fast, and I want to carefully consider what's left here. So what we will do is take a 10-minute break, and let's come back at 3 o'clock sharp, and we'll finish this up, and then we'll start the next lecture. So you're dismissed for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. We'll see you shortly.
Okay. want to. But in the Bible, Genesis 8, God promised Noah that as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will not cease. So do we still have day and night? Yes. Do we still have summer and winter? Yes. Do we still have cold and heat? Yes. Do we still have seed time and harvest? Yes. As long as the earth endures, there is going to be seed time and harvest. That's a promise from God that he's going to feed us and take care of us. And in the spirit of prophecy, it says, in grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts are to be found all the food elements that we need. If we will come to the Lord in simplicity of mind, he will teach us how to prepare wholesome food. Counsels on diet and food. Isaiah says, why do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me and eat what is good, and let your soul delight itself in abundance. And so the truth is, vitamins and minerals and all of these supplements do not satisfy, and they do not represent food, and they should not be used in your recommendations. And the sad thing is, as I go from Adventist church to Adventist church, there is always some health reformer in the church who takes a certain kind of vitamin or supplement and pushes it on other people and hold themselves out to be an expert in vitamin nutrition. And these people, as you'll see in a later lecture, need to be silenced. We need to eat a variety of nutritious foods. So that's the end of 5A. Let me just start up the next one. And it'll just take me a minute to find it here. All right. All right. I assume we're back and everything's working good. We're up to chapters. We're going to cover in this time slot chapters 21 through 24, which I think takes us through the end of the book. Pages 230 to 265. Not all programs are health evangelism, networking, marketing, and special issues. And we want to talk about programs that really are health promotion programs, but we're going to talk first about a set of programs that are misleading secular health programs. And these are meetings that contain words such as miraculous, instant, secret, amazing. They have vague claims such as purifies your body, raise your energy level, boost your immune system, detoxify the body. And then you hear lots of testimonials and anecdotes. And 15 testimonials don't make science. And 25 testimonials doesn't represent statistics. So we want you want to avoid ad copy that tries to diagnose you and then offers to sell you a cure. It will not work. Then there are misleading, more secular health programs that are misleading. The claims that doctors don't want you to know about a cure because they would lose their business. This really distressed me when I was in the treatment of HIV and AIDS patients because somebody would find something on the internet about a cure for AIDS and they would want to try it. And I would say, please don't. Stay on your medicine. Your virus count is undetectable. Your immune system is normal. And they'd say, but no, I want to be cured, and this is a cure. And they would try it, and in absolutely every case, they deteriorated rapidly, and in a very disappointed way, had to go back to taking their medicines the way it were, and felt betrayed by the doctor that wrote that book, or by the book that they had bought. And then there are a lot of products that are sold by multi-level marketing. You sell this supplement to your neighbors, you'll get a % back. It's all a Ponzi scheme. And then you want to stay away from products that will cure a wide variety of illnesses. This will cure your cataracts, take care of cavities, lower your blood pressure, make you more regular, and things like that. These are all secular health programs that are misleading. Now, there are some very credible scientific secular health programs, and you can extract a lot of help from these. The Mayo Clinic website is good. The Harvard newsletter is good. All of the stuff at the American Cancer Society is good. The American Heart Association literature is good. The National Institutes of Health, FDA, USDA, CDC publications are good. Medscape website is good. The Body website is good. And I'll be going into resources like this in a later lecture. But these are all secular sites, but they contain highly accurate scientific information. And then there are misleading health programs that are conducted by Seventh-day Adventists. And these, I think, are really an embarrassment to the church. And I want to look at some of them with you. First is Yuchi Pines. And their medical director now is a very credible Mark Sandoval. Very nice young man, and I like him. He's well educated and well trained. But Yuchi Pines has some serious problems. They state that they're committed to assisting people through the use of simple, natural methods, using exercise, vegetarian nutrition, hydrotherapy, massage, the rational and judicious use of some herbs and supplements, and firm faith in the divine healer. Well, we can't argue with any of that. But then on their website, they tell you that you should have about 70% alkaline foods, and these are the alkaline foods. And then you ought to have about 30% acid foods, and then these are the acid foods. There's not a stitch of scientific evidence to support the necessity of balancing acid or alkaline foods, and nobody has established that there is an ideal percentage of the two. But going from that to an absolute quackery, and I checked this website out today, and this erroneous information is on their website today. It was written by Calvin and Agatha Thrash, who were the first conductors of Yuchi Pines. And in their handouts, they have first aid for acute onset atrial fibrillation. Well, atrial fibrillation is a dangerous condition where the heart beats irregularly, and within a few days you can develop blood clots in your atria that can break off and embolize and give you strokes. My mother died of a stroke caused by atrial fibrillation. And so they are saying that for the first few minutes you could do some carotid massage, and you can do that for up to 1 week. And the carotid massage, of course, they don't tell you that it could fix you, or the truth is it could give you a worse arrhythmia. And then, this is really ridiculous, splash the face with ice water for 5 seconds, and it'll convert you to a normal rhythm. There is not a single stitch of scientific evidence to support that. Atrial fibrillation, the rate needs to be controlled with a beta blocker. Clots need to be blocked with clot-forming drug, clot-preventing drugs, and that has been shown to save lives and prevent strokes. There is not a stitch of evidence that splashing ice water in the face for 5 seconds will make any difference. And then they tell you that garlic and its relatives, garlic, minced clove, or extracts of 500 milligrams twice a day will dramatically reduce platelet stickiness and the risk of strokes. There's not a stitch of scientific evidence to show that that's true. This is patently false and should never appear on a Seventh-day Adventist website. And then they tell you that atrial fibrillation, the use of water, since the tissues hold on to quite a lot of water during atrial fibrillation, it does, because you develop congestive heart failure with atrial fibrillation. And they'll say drinking water thins out the blood, and it helps prevent a clot. There's not a stitch of evidence that water during atrial fibrillation prevents blood clots in the heart. And then they tell you that walnuts, sunflower seeds, flaxseed oil, taken daily, reduces rhythm disturbances and diminishes clots and heart attack. There's not a stitch of evidence to that. This is patently false, and it should never have appeared. And then they quote some naturopathic guy from Oregon who says lycopus, gypsywort, and bugleweed are the best botanicals that we have for atrial fibrillation, in addition to cayenne pepper and coenzyme Q10. And then he's telling you that a flexible magnetic mat should be worn over the heart, and it will a ceramic disc magnet will help as well. It ought to have 3,150 gauge. This is in Eugene Pine's literature. That should be taken off. As a Seventh-day Adventist physician, I'm ashamed that that kind of falsehood is there. If you're going to claim it, you ought to be able to prove it. And there is no proof of that. Agatha Thrash, she's dead. She died in 2015. But she was very popular on the camp meeting circuit because she looks a little bit like Mrs. White. And she was very popular with Hans Steele. She was a columnist in publications. She was on TV, 3ABN, frequently, and is a personal friend of Mark Finley. Well, he ought to investigate his friends a little bit more. Now, after having gone through these misleading health programs by Seventh-day Adventists, and I just gave you one. For that one, there are 50 more that we should be ashamed of. Then we have scientific secular health programs by Seventh-day Adventists. And here I'm going to take a look at WellSource, and it is done by Dr. Don Hall, who has a Doctor of Public Health degree, I believe from Loma Linda University. And he believes in optimal health, and his programs, we will empower individuals. Well, now, let's ask the question, is that true? Can you empower individuals? No, this is an error. It's the Holy Spirit that empowers individuals, but he's going to empower individuals to live the highest quality of life possible by helping them connect their lifestyle habits to their physical, mental, and social well-being. And we're really glad for that. And his, of course, is they want to prevent health problems before they occur with evidence-based, actionable data. Wonderful. That's science. I'm glad that he's doing that. They are going to predict and prevent disease, They identify participants' risk factors for chronic disease and their readiness for change. And they have programs and interventions that are most likely to be effective. And then they want to inspire change with actionable information. And that's good as well. The books that he has are 9 Ways to Prevent Diabetes, very good book. The Vegetarian Advantage, very good book, very accurate. Staying Healthy for Life, very good book. 8 Weeks to Wellness, an excellent program. Weight Management for Life, full of good facts. Fitness for Life, very, very good. And so the 8 Weeks to Wellness, they develop a healthy lifestyle, become more physically active. They have you choose healthy fats, healthy carbohydrates, maintain your normal weight, get good body-mind connections, coping with stress, prevent disease by getting appropriate health checks. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's New Start without the T, which is trust in God's power. The divine power and trust in God is not in there. He's a Seventh-day Adventist. His program is scientific. It's very good, but it's absolutely godless. And these are the prevention series that he has. And when you go to his website, you think you would find, no, you find a referral to healthy eating, to Harvard Nutrition, USDA, physical activity, to these various websites. And Don Hall is a Seventh-day Adventist. He's been honored by Loma Linda University. He was awarded for his contributions to vegetarian nutrition and concepts, and he's the author of Vegetarian Advantage and other books on disease prevention. It's wonderful. It's done by a Seventh-day Adventist, but it's not Seventh-day Adventist. He does it for profit, which is all right with me. I mean, you got to make a living. And but he's become a millionaire, which is all right with me. But he left God out of it. And the quickest way to become a millionaire is to leave the church out of it, leave God out of it. Here's other examples. CHIP. It's a program by Hans Veal. It's been sold to the Sanitarian Group in Australia. Contains a lot of wonderful information. Absolutely godless. Depression Recovery by Neil Neville. There is a spiritual component to this. He does have you study the book of Proverbs. But then he really promotes cognitive behavioral therapy and has you read cognitive behavioral therapy books and the like. The only problem with cognitive behavioral therapy is it's not divine behavioral therapy. And rather than CBT, we need DBT. Then you have Health Expo, and it's very popular all around the world, and they have it in multiple languages. The scientific information is really good. But the spiritual information is about 1/4 of an inch deep, and it is lacking in that regard. Then you have your Pathway to Health. We touched on that a little bit. The Pathway to Health is scientifically sound, but it's a flash in the pan Adventist thing, and most of the providers, your Pathway to Health are not Seventh-day Adventist. Does not directly lead to the church, does not directly lead to Christ, except it is used as a come-on to evangelistic meetings. So you attend your Pathway to Health, and then tomorrow they start an evangelistic series. And then you have scientific, secular programs that are owned and operated by the church itself. One is Steps for Life, created by the North American Vision. And it's to assist Adventist churches and schools and healthcare organizations in tackling the challenge of childhood obesity. And they want you to get active. And in Steps for Life, they promote healthy eating and physical activity. And it's a wonderful program. There's not a thing wrong with Steps for Life, except it has almost nothing to do with the church, and it has nothing to do with spirituality, has nothing to do with Christ, has nothing to do with salvation, has nothing to do with evangelism. It is a health program, but it's not a health evangelism program. And these are the Steps for Life goals that they put on their website. They want to have 2 million physical activity miles. They want everybody to get the Presidential Active Lifestyle Award. They want to launch 100 summer feeding sites. They want to start 100 new vegetable gardens. And not a thing about Bible studies, not a thing about prayer, not a thing about church attendance. It is a secular health program run by the church itself. Well, Facts by Hope, with Hope, are a TV series that you can download from the Adventist sites. Of the 36 one-minute Facts with Hope, 4 of them are spiritual, and 32 of them are not spiritual. They're totally secular. So here again, it's health and about this much evangelism. And now we come to evangelistic health programs. This is what we want, is evangelistic health programs. And the variables that should be tracked in the Seventh-day Adventist program, we should track health variables, we should track spiritual variables, we should track social variables, education, ownership, and financial. And so we need to understand what are the qualities that optimize the evangelistic part of health evangelism. Well, the qualities that help evangelism are if you do them in the church. It helps if your pastor takes a part. It helps if church members have an interface with participants. It helps if you have small group activities. It helps if you have a spiritual approach to behavior change. It helps if you incorporate prayer into the program. It helps if you assign daily reading assignments. Now, there are people that have said to me, oh, you do that and somebody's going to go someplace else. And my feeling is that's fine. If they are turned off by the spirituality in your weight loss program, there are 100 other secular weight loss programs they could go to. Why should you divorce a Seventh-day Adventist? Why should you divorce your program from spiritual qualities just so you won't offend somebody? The Holy Spirit's led them there. They're waiting to hear some spiritual things. You better give it to them. Other qualities that we need in church-based health evangelism, you've got to create a path that leads to baptism and church membership. Then you need to collect data that includes the spiritual variables. You need to be scientifically sound and up to date. You need to follow up for a year, and it ought to be low cost. I'm not saying you can't make a profit, but no individual should profit from the program. So what I'm proposing in this next section is a scoring system. And the problem today is that nobody is keeping track of anything. Nobody's keeping track of what the church does. Nobody's keeping track of what Don Hall does. Nobody keeps track of what the various centers are doing. Nobody's keeping track of anything. And I'm thinking what some organization or individual, and it would take an organization really, and I joined the Adventist Medical Evangelism Network hoping they would pick up on this, and I've been with them now for about a year, and they've showed no interest in this, so I'm thinking about moving on. But the way you would audit a program, and everything we've mentioned so far, those at UT Pines, those from Don Hall, those done by the church itself, and those done by 100 other organizations and institutions ought to be audited. And what we would do, we would give them a score. We would give a high score to those that are done in the church. If they don't do it in the church, the score goes down. If they involve the pastor, they get a high score. If they involve church members, they get a high score. If they've got small group activities, they get a high score. If they have follow-up activities, we give them a high score. And especially if they have a spiritual dimension, divine behavior change, we give them a high score. If they teach people how to pray, they get a high score. If they assign Bible texts, they get a high score. And if they're scientifically sound, they get a high score. UT Pines gets an F on that particular thing. And then to what extent are they commercialized? If they're a non-profit, we'll give them a high score. If they make a little profit, we'll knock it down a little bit. And if they make a big profit, we'll knock it down even more. If they don't advocate supplements, we'll give them a star for that. If they don't advocate devices, one of the things I didn't like about Neil Nedley's program is he sold energy bars to fight depression, and he had a high-intensity light to help fight seasonal affective disorder, which is a form of depression. And if you bought your light from him and used it, it would cure your depression. And I just don't think that if you're in the business of health evangelism that you should be selling anything that you can profit from. Then, if you're doing good data collection, we will give you a high score. And if the cost per participant is low, you get a high score. The more you charge the participant, the more your thing falls. So who should do this kind of an audit? Well, some responsible organization. I don't think any one church could do it. I don't really think any big conference could do it. The North American Division could do it. I've talked to them about it. They don't have the interest or the personnel to do it. I've talked to the Adventist Medical Evangelism Network. They've got the money. They are so far not interested. ASI could do it, or some group dedicated to this could raise money and do it. But they really need to audit all health programs, those used in Seventh-day Adventists, those created by Seventh-day Adventists, those recommended by the church, and those conducted by self-supporting institutions. These all need to be audited for credibility. And then, if the audit was published, the church would know what they should use. But at the moment, they don't. And the audit scores ought to be published, and we ought to make judgments and recommendations. We could come up with a 4 or 5 star rating: excellent, acceptable, primarily secular, not recommended. Then we go to networking and marketing. I'm not an expert really on this, but if you got a program going, you really need to let church administration know about it. And it's good to interface with voluntary agencies. I've always had an interface with the Cancer Society, Lung Association, Heart Association. And of course, you know of my involvement with governmental agencies. And they need to know about it as well. There are many ways of advertising. You can buy hits on Facebook and social media. And I think addressing alumni from previous sessions is a good way to do it. Pamphlets are good. I find newspapers and radio and TV are not as effective as they used to be. Sometimes you can get help from local government. Dealing with special issues. These are things we need to watch out for. And I think this may wrap up this session. But I'm really leery of independent ministries. I think we all need each other. We need to work in harmony with each other. We need to share the success that we've had. But I don't think you should give up control of the program to another person or an organization, because they might ruin it. They might run it for profit or gain, and they might remove the spiritual elements. And you want to make sure that if you've done a health evangelism program and somebody else wants to take it over, that you make sure that they continue to maintain the essential qualities that you have in it. I think you should copyright your materials. I have had friends that had come up with, I had a lady who had come up with some really delicious recipes. She shared them with somebody, and that other person copyrighted them and then kept her from using them in her own material. So she was prevented from using her own recipes in her own literature because somebody else had copyrighted them. So copyright what's yours, but be generous. Share it with everybody, but it gives you a level of control. Avoid commercialism. As I say, Don Hall and Hans Deal have become great commercial successes, but their programs are lacking spiritual elements that make them truly health evangelism. Be careful of dictatorial leadership. The more successful a program becomes, the more big boss the director and owner becomes. God's in charge, not you. The more successful it is, become more shepherd-like and less dictatorial. And watch out for health fanatics. There is no over-the-counter cure of cancer. No one product can correct dozens of health problems. And then your programs don't knock doctors, hospitals, or other sectors of healthcare. Health is a means to spirituality, not an end in itself. Then you have spiritual fanatics. You need to avoid distinctive doctrines in your meetings. In the formal presentation, limit the spiritual discussions to behavior change. This is how God will help you. Be prepared to answer all questions in the one-on-one follow-up in the homes and in the evangelistic meetings you have. We've spent a long time today talking about nutritional supplements. They're not necessary. Do not use them in your programs. Do not allow anybody in your programs to promote them or to share them or to sell them. And health evangelism is for health promotion and the prevention of disease. We are not designed to replace medical care or to cure disease. This is why in the programs I do, my weight management program is called Best Way, and it is weight management. Does it help diabetes? Yes. Does it help blood pressure? Yes. Does it help heart disease? Yes. But the program is done in a church. We do not diagnose or treat diseases in the church. That's between you and your doctor. We make you healthy, and we only recommend stuff that we can give you without a prescription. And the medical care is between you and your doctor, and we're not going to practice medicine without a license. We're here for health promotion and prevention. We're going to do it with diet, exercise, and spiritual exercises, and leave the medical part. Tell them to stay in touch with their doctor, because as they get better and better, they're going to need adjustments in their medicine, and hopefully they can come off of their medicine as they continue to improve. It's good in your food demonstrations to use recipes that are regularly used by the presenter. And I think that it's good for them to use a family favorite. Do not have anybody demonstrate a recipe that's new to them or not regularly used by them. I was really embarrassed to attend a program run by a friend of mine, Gary, I forget his last name at the moment, but it was a nice program, and he had a food demonstration. And the people came up, and one lady was stirring a pot, and she said, "This is really good stuff." She says, "We've had it every night this week because we're trying to get it right." Well, that just told you it wasn't something they were familiar with. It wasn't something they used at home on a regular basis. And that really canceled the validity of what they were doing. I had another lady, same program, was up there stirring stuff, and then she would turn to Gary and she says, "Does that look about right?" Which tells you she had no idea what she was doing. And how can you recommend a recipe? I had a lady give a recipe in one of my programs, and it was a family soup. A little Italian lady, sweet as could be, and it was wonderful. Everybody enjoyed it, and it was very tasty. And she was very generous handing out the recipe, but it had been in her family for 4 generations. And she was proud of it. Everybody was glad to have it because they knew it was her recipe. It was a family recipe. It was well tested. Everybody loved it. That's the kind of recipe you want to use. Right. We actually did very well. We're going to stop now. Although if you had some questions, I would be willing to take some questions for the next 5 minutes or so. The next lecture is going to be a lot of fun. It has got a lot of graphics, and it's going to review very quickly and very simply almost everything we covered from the very first lecture. And I almost hate to tell you to begin with, it has almost 200 slides, but we go through about 1 a second. We go through it very fast, and it's all graphics. And I think you'll find it to be a great deal of fun. Any questions?
It looks like no one has any questions.
Oh, I can't hear you.
It looks like no one has any questions here.
Okay, well, come back again at 4 o'clock. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, because I'm 3 hours later than you.
Yes.
So we'll see you back at 4 o'clock sharp. Bye-bye. conference centers? Do you do it in your medical or dental practice? Do you do it in better living centers? No. The local church is supposed to be the primary institution for health evangelism. Some people say, oh, my church is too small. We're kind of out of the way and a bit hard to find. People don't like my church. We don't have a good reputation in the community. Or I'm a member of ASI and I'm not a part of the church organization. Or I'm a member of this outpost center and I'm not a member of any church organization. Well, consider this quote here. Excuse me. Enfeebled and defective as it may appear, the church is the one object upon which God bestows in a special sense his supreme regard. It is the theater of his grace, in which he delights to reveal his power to transform hearts. So we would like to see people's lives transformed. The local church is the theater of his grace. The local church is where God pours out a special blessing. Remember that Jesus referred Saul to the local church. Lord, what would you have me to do? Then the Lord said to him, arise and go into the city, and it will be told you what you must do. So Jesus himself did not tell Saul what his task was to be. Angels referred Cornelius to the church. Now send men to Joppa and send for Simon, whose surname is Peter. The angel could have given him the information, but no, he was referred to the church. If Jesus and the angel send people to the church for answers, we should do the same. Churches have advantages. They're empty most of the time. They are designed for group meetings. The church is not threatening during off hours. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not threatening. Sabbath, yes, it is threatening. The church advantage, the cost is right. It's inexpensive. The church is the Christian's home. Doing things in the church improves your church's reputation and makes it excellent in your community. It also gives a chance for church members to go to work. And we have the advantage of having 50,000 churches that are empty during the week. Health evangelism has this quote to support it in the local church. The Lord gave me light in that every place where a church was established, medical missionary work was to be done. There should be health evangelism in every church. The medical missionary work is to occupy its rightful place, as it ever should have, in every church in our land. Yes, we need to have health evangelism in every church. There is a message regarding health reform to be born in every church. Health evangelism in church plants. Churches are to be organized, and in no case are these churches to divorce themselves from the medical missionary work. Warning. Disconnected. The medical missionary work should be a part of the work of every church in our land. Disconnected from the church, it would soon become a strange medley of disorganized atoms. This, in my mind, is what health evangelism looks like today. Everybody and his brother and sister doing one thing or another. Or perhaps health evangelism is disorganized in this way. Everybody has a program, everybody has a plan. And if you give me some money, I'll show you how you can live forever. It's disorganized. We don't know what we're doing. So, number one principle, the local church is the primary institution for health evangelism. That's principle number one of the 6 fundamental principles. Principle number 2, who is to do health evangelism? Who? Health professionals? Preachers? Health educators? The primary practitioner of health evangelism is this guy, the church member. We've come a time when every church member, every member of the church needs to take hold of medical missionary work. We've come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of medical missionary work. We have come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of medical missionary work. Reality check. Church members don't know how to do it. They don't live it. They are generally bad examples. The primary practitioners of health evangelism, no church can flourish unless its members are workers. The individual members of the church should feel a responsibility resting upon them to do what? Overcome their own defects of character, and by doing this, they encourage others to overcome. So I always let the most obese church members be the small group leaders in the weight control clinics. And guess what? They lose the most weight because somebody's watching them. We got 21 million church members. We ought to be able to put them to work. Principle number 2, church members are the primary practitioners of health evangelism. We're back to the 6 fundamental principles. We're up to number 3. What information should we use in health evangelism? It should all be valid scientific information. It should be based on large population studies. I really like this NIH AARP study because it has 545,653 people, ages 50 to 71 in 6 U.S. states. They have given us marvelous information that we have never gotten out of the Adventist Health Study. This study alone tells us that red meat causes heart disease, strokes, colon cancer, cancer of the pancreas, cancer of the stomach, esophagus cancer, liver cancer, and acute myeloid leukemia. The Adventist Health Study hasn't done that. But the Adventist Health Study is very good, and you should use the data from it. And later in the program, I can give you all of the articles ever published in the Adventist Health Study. We've got 96,000 people in it, and over 460 scientific articles have been published from these studies, and much of it groundbreaking nutritional information. The Harvard Nurses Health Study number 3 is very good. It has 280,000 participants. The European Health Study, EPIC, has 521,000 participants. And the CDC's NHANES survey is a statistical sample of the U.S. population, and their information is most likely to be extrapolated to the entire U.S. population. So reality check. The world knows the principles of good health because they did the research. Now, we may have done it first. They got their clues from us. But don't think for a moment that Seventh-day Adventists have a corner on the understanding of good health principles. It is now universally known because the scientific health studies have been done by secular institutions around the world. The stones are crying out. I don't use animal studies. There are some very good animal studies. I don't use them because I'm talking to people, not animals. I want people to change, not animals. So I'm using people data to convince people that they should live differently. I don't use chemical studies so much, but I did today because one of the ones I showed you looked at interleukins and CRP and the natural killing factors, biochemicals in the bloodstream. But I don't tend to use those studies very much. There are people that promote colloidal silver. Colloidal silver will kill almost it kills corona-19. It kills HIV, kills AIDS. But only in a petri dish. Only on a dish like this. Doesn't work in people. People should never drink colloidal silver. It is not a mineral supplement. You should never advise anybody to take it. You'll get silver poisoning as a result of it. Do not use reflexology. Do not use cranial sacral therapy. It's one of devil's devices. Do not use aromatherapy. I have people at camp meetings promoting aromatherapy, essential oils. This will give you a measure of health. Don't use magnetic therapy. It is bogus. Do not use iridology. The spots in your iris are not indicators of disease in certain parts of the body. Do not use crystal therapy. Do not use dietary supplements. Do not use plant extracts. So, reality check. Adventists should not promote anything in a pill or a bottle. The original plant is best. Check to the facts. Stick to the facts, not myths. And beware of fake health evangelists. There are a lot of them in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the problem with them is that they are Google educated, and in 5 minutes they know more than their doctor. They have a zeal without knowledge. That makes them fanatical. They are very often lacking in flexibility. They're dogmatic. They're missing balance, which makes them lopsided. Most of them distort Ellen White's writings. They are dismissive of educated scientists. I have my head elder in my church frequently slam PhDs and says, they're really pretty ignorant people. Well, they may be ignorant about something, but they know a whale of a lot more than he does about certain things. And dismiss people that are profit-oriented. There are the fake health evangelists have their own institutions. And you can find dozens of them affiliated with outpost centers and ASI. Fake health evangelists have their own programs. Fake health evangelism have their own literature. They speak at camp meetings and are welcome there. And their products are prominently displayed in Adventist book centers because nobody there screens the quality of the materials that they have. They even have booths at ASI convention. Mrs. White comments about these fake health reformers. She says, it is time that something was done, that novices may not be allowed to take the field and advocate health reform. Their works and words can be spared, for they do more injury than the most wise and intelligent men with the best influence they can exert can counteract. She goes on, it is impossible for the best advocates of health reform to fully relieve the minds of the public from the prejudice received through the wrong course of these extremists, and to place the great subject of health reform on the right basis in the community where these men have figured. The door is also closed in a great measure, so that unbelievers cannot be reached by the present truth upon the Sabbath and the soon coming Savior. The most precious truths are cast aside by the people as unworthy of a hearing. These men are referred to as representatives of health reformers and Sabbath keepers in general. A great responsibility rests upon those who have thus proved a stumbling block to unbelievers. So if you have a person with AV or atrial fibrillation, and you tell him to press on his carotid arteries and splash ice water in his face rather than going to his doctor, and you now have a Seventh-day Adventist name attached to that, they're never going to listen to what you say about the Sabbath or about the second coming or the state of the dead. And these fake health reformers and fake health institutions need to be rebuked and reformed. Reality check. Test all things. Hold fast that which is good. Principle number 3. Use accurate scientific information from human populations in health evangelism. That was it. Number 4, use the Bible. The principles of health reform are found in the Word of God. The gospel of health is to be firmly linked with the ministry of the Word. It is the Lord's design that the restoring influence of health reform shall be part of the last great effort to proclaim the gospel message. You have to link your health information with the ministry of the Word. And here are some examples. The Bible says he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Everybody in a health reform class of any kind needs to know that. Or 2 Timothy 4:5. But you be watchful in all things, endure afflictions. It may be tough. but the Lord will give you strength to endure those. Or 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. This is better than cognitive behavioral therapy. Cast your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Or may all who seek you rejoice and be glad in you. Great Bible promises. What about temptation? God will make the way of escape that you may be able to bear it. Everybody needs to know that. So reality check. Nobody else will use the Bible in health programming. Seventh-day Adventists are the only ones that will do it. We need to do it now. We need to do it well. Principle number 4 is use the Bible in health evangelism. Principle number 6 of the 6 fundamental principles. Introduce Jesus. A great work of reform is demanded in. It is only through the grace of Christ that the work of restoration, physical, mental, and spiritual can be accomplished. You want to get healthy? Get to know Jesus. You need mental strength? Get to know Jesus. You need spiritual strength? Abandon your crystals, abandon your aromatherapy, abandon your magnets, abandon your cranial sacral therapy, abandon your iridology. Get to know Jesus. I am the vine. You are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. I can do all things through Christ, who strengthens me. The health ministry is about Jesus. We should remember that the object of the medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men and women to the man of Calvary who takes away the sin of the world. By beholding him, they will be changed into his likeness. We are to encourage the sick and suffering to look to Jesus and live. So the sick and suffering come to your health program. What should we be doing? Tell them, look to Jesus and live. And if they're offended, go someplace else. There are 100 secular programs. There are 10,000 secular programs you can go to. We're sorry we couldn't serve you, but we want you to know without Jesus, you're not likely to make it. We don't need to use modern psychiatry. We don't need to use hypnosis. Reality check, nobody else will say that Jesus changes your behavior. Only Seventh-day Adventists will say that. Principle number 5, Jesus changes lives in health evangelism. Number 6, benefits of prayer. Not meditation, not mindfulness, not yoga, not chakra cleansing and balance. Ask and it'll be given unto you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it'll be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be open. And whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Now, this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he will hear us. The children of God are not left alone and defenseless. Prayer moves the arm of omnipotence. We should reach out the hand of faith and grasp the arm of infinite power. The simplest prayer that is put up in faith is acceptable to heaven. The humblest soul that looks up to Christ in faith is connected with the God of the universe. You never learn that at Weight Watchers. You never learn that at Don Hall's meeting. You never learn that in reading any of the secular books on behavior change. Reality check. Nobody else will advocate prayer and health programming. If somebody is offended by prayer, they need to go to another program, because we believe that prayer changes things. So principle 6 is prayer connection with God. Prayer brings you power. Prayer changes you. Now, are Adventists special? Well, no. The true health facts are now widely known by everybody in the scientific community, and the steps in behavior change have been developed by psychology, but it's been missing trust in divine power. Are Adventists special? Yes, because we've got 50,000 churches, 20 million members, We have Jesus who changes behaviors. We have the Bible that contains the promises of God. We have prayer that connects us with the God of the universe, and it's up to us to connect these special qualities that nobody can take from us with health. If you connect these with health, then you have health evangelism. So, we've done pretty good so far. Our time is about half done. In the next section, we're going to look at 6 failures that compromise health evangelism. Failure number 1, confusion regarding the term health evangelism. Is it scientific information? Is it the gospel? Which is more important? Which comes first? When do you transition? How do you blend the two? Well, we've already told you that health benefits are temporary. You still die. Evangelism has eternal benefits, and it doesn't matter if you live or die. Evangelism is the primary work of the church, and evangelism, no matter how you cut it or slices, must be the primary work of health evangelism. Lesson number 1 learned. Evangelism is the primary work of health evangelism. Failure number 2 is we fail to integrate spiritual and evangelistic elements into health evangelism. Well, how do you do that? You integrate Scripture. You promote prayer. You locate in the local church. You create an interface with church members. And you share the good news that God changes lives. So the lesson 2 learned is to put spiritual elements into health evangelism. Failure number 3, we fail to track the evangelistic elements that we do. We want you to start tracking the NAVP, the non-Adventist person visit. And you count a non-Adventist every time they come through the door, and you add them all up. Health programs generate NAPVs first and baptisms later. I'm going to give you an example. It is a summary of 28 Best Way programs, and it generated 4,723 NAVP. That's 168 NAVP per Best Way program. So you need to track NAVP. You also need to track prayers. In one weight control program that I did, those who lost more than 10 pounds were 25% more likely to pray 3 times a day than those who lost less weight. So those who pray 3 times a day are more likely to lose weight than those who do not pray 3 times a day. You can track Bible studies. In the same program, those who studied their Bible every day were 21% more likely to lose the 10 pounds compared to those who lost less weight. Keep track of member contacts. In the same program, those who lost 10 pounds or more had nearly 50% more contact with Seventh-day Adventists than those who lost less pounds. Keep track of behavior change, of course. Keep track of between meal snacks. Those who don't eat between meal snacks are more likely to lose more weight. Keep track of the food items they choose to avoid. Those who ate none of those foods were 32% more likely to lose 10 pounds than those who didn't do well. Keep track of walking. Those who lost 10 pounds were 64% more likely to have walked 45 minutes than those who lost less weight. Where are the baptisms? That's the wrong question. We got them to church. We made friends with them. We taught them to pray. We have them reading the Bible. They're living healthier lives. They have a practical relationship with Jesus. They're more likely to attend evangelistic meetings. So how many of them did you baptize? So lesson number 3 that we have learned is track the effectiveness of the spiritual elements in health evangelism. Keep good statistics. Failure number 4, we have failed to keep follow-up data. Do the new behaviors stick? You need to follow up at 1, 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. Are they still off tobacco? Are they keeping their weight off? Are they still avoiding snacks? Are they still exercising? Are they still making good food choices? Are they still reading the Bible? Are they still praying? Are they still keeping in touch with their Seventh-day Adventist helpers? So lesson number 4, follow up at frequent intervals for at least a year, which means you do more data collection. Failure number 5, failure to measure and integrate how people are integrating into the local church. And what kind of things would you measure here? What does that look like? I think we need to measure the susceptibility that people who attend health programs have to attend evangelistic meetings. I can give you an example. We invited people who had been to our health evangelism program, and it was about 125 people, to come to the evangelistic meetings. And the stamps and the letters cost $41.67. And 3 of those people showed up. And so you divide that out, it cost $41 for each health evangelism person who came to come. Then we did a mass mail out, 16,000 flyers, cost us $1,600, and 5 people came. And so you divide the cost of those flyers and postage. Each one of those 5 cost $1,600 to come to the evangelistic meeting. So here you can see that if a person has been to an evangelistic meeting, they're much more likely to respond to an invitation than a mass mail out. Once this is understood, evangelists will begin to insist that a local church conduct health evangelism for at least a year or 2 years before they come there, because they know that with a minimal amount of advertising, they're going to have a much better turnout than they do from mass mail-outs. And so it turns out that after a health evangelism activity, a person is 76 times more likely to attend an evangelistic series at a cost savings of $1,558 per person. Let's do what's cost effective. So, another thing we need to measure is the susceptibility to take Bible studies. We need to measure the susceptibility to be baptized. We need to measure the susceptibility to be a regular attending at church. We need to measure the susceptibility for responsible stewardship. Are people who are baptized, who came to the church through health evangelism, more likely to give to the church? Are they more likely to attend? Are they more likely to be baptized? Are they less likely to apostatize? So, lesson number 5, we need to track integration into the church. This means more data collection. Nobody is doing this. And until you learn to do this, it will never be proved that health evangelism is useful for the church. It's absolutely important that you keep track of things, because we live in a data-driven society. And until we can prove that health evangelism does more than bring people to the church, we have to show that it gets them into the church and keeps them into the church and makes them productive people. Failure number 6, we fail to correctly understand Christ's method. Christ's method alone will help us reach the people. The Savior mingled with people as one who desired their good. He showed his sympathy for them, ministered to their needs, won their confidence, bade them follow him. The problem is we tend to secularize this statement. Mingled with men, we make that secular. Desired their good, we make that humanism. Showed sympathy, that's humanism. Ministered to their needs, that's social action. Won their confidence, build their trust. Then bade them follow me. And this is the approach that we take today. We're heavy on health, thin on evangelism, and then someday we'll get to evangelism, and then we'll leave health out of that. That's not the way to do it. We are currently doing big on health and tiny on evangelism, and we hope that we can make the switch to big evangelism and tiny on health. No, no, no. A great work of reform is demanded, and it is only through the grace of Christ that the work of restoration, physical and mental and spiritual, can be accomplished. Yes, the poor are to be relieved, the sick cared for, the sorrowing and bereaved comforted, the ignorant instructed, the inexperienced counseled. We are to weep with those that weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. But all of that must be accompanied by the power of persuasion, the power of prayer, and the power of the love of God. This work cannot be done without fruit. That's from the very same page. Health and evangelism need to be united. We should ever remember that the object of medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men and women to the man of Calvary who takes away the sin of the world. Point them to the one who can heal both physical and spiritual disease. Talk of his love, tell of his power to save. That has to be done in every health evangelism. Further, physical healing is bound up with the gospel commission and the work of the gospel. Teaching and healing are never to be separated. Jesus made each work of healing an occasion for the implanting in the heart of the divine principles of his love and benevolence. Thus his followers are to work. You want to eat right, ask Jesus to help you. You want to exercise more, ask Jesus to help you. You want to lose weight, ask Jesus to help you. Jesus is here to help and to guide. The work of health reform connected with the present truth for this time is a power for good. It is the right hand of the gospel and often opens fields for the entrance of the gospel. Neither is the medical missionary work to be divorced from the gospel. You can't take evangelism out of medical missionary work. Neither is the medical missionary work to be divorced from the gospel ministry. When this is done, both are one-sided. Neither is complete without the whole. And we are so accustomed to doing one-sided ministries. We have a health ministry, we have an evangelistic ministry. We do not understand what health evangelism really is. The one great work of medical missionaries is to fulfill the gospel, the commission to carry the gospel of salvation to all parts of the world. That's what we are to do. Lesson learned number 6, not health and then evangelism, but health evangelism or evangelism, health, health. It's got to be one big work. When the medical missionary work wins men and women to a saving knowledge of Christ and his truth, money and earnest labor may be safely invested in it, for it is work that will endure. The church is not investing money or earnest labor in health work today because it doesn't, in its way it's been conducted by too many people, too many organizations. It has not been bringing men and women to a saving knowledge of Christ and his truth. Bringing people to a saving knowledge of Christ and his truth is what medical missionary work is all about. And that is, those are the concepts that I've encapsulated in the book, The Principles and Practice of Health Evangelism. Each of you has a copy of that. And I hope you will use those principles in the work that you do. You've got my contact information, and you can contact me at any time. That's the end of August 5, number C. And I'm going to stop sharing at this point and just point out that these are the lectures that we will be starting out on tomorrow. The Healthiest People and the Science Behind the Success of Seventh-day Adventists. If this worked right, you should have these books. And if you don't have the books, ask Dr. John where they are, because I asked them to order them a couple of weeks ago, actually a month ago, and they should be available to you. If not, they've been ordered, and you'll have them soon. All right. Any questions or observations? If not, we're actually done for the day. We went through 200 slides in 20 minutes.
That's not bad.
You need to know that this last lecture took me about 100 hours to put together.
Wow.
And so when you integrate graphics with principles, it takes a long time to find the right graphic, and it takes a long time to get the words just right and make it so it'll go fast. But there are people who understand this much better than the word slides that we hit you with yesterday. Anyway, if there are no questions, would you close us out with some prayer?
It doesn't look like we have any questions, so let's bow our heads. Kind Father in heaven, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for all that we've been able to learn from your servant, Dr. Adams. Lord, I ask that you be with us as we separate from this place, but may we not separate from the knowledge that has been provided to us. Lord, may it be ingrained in us. May we apply these principles to our lives. In your sweet, precious, holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, it's been a pleasure to be with you today. I'll be back again tomorrow.
Good night. Thank you.
Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a pleasant evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Did you know that there's no work class on Friday? Oh, vaguely. I was reading, I was going by the picture I took.